Warren Buffett has spent decades publicly explaining exactly how he invests. He writes detailed annual letters. He gives hundreds of interviews. He answers questions at a shareholder meeting that draws tens of thousands of people every year. And yet the version of Buffett that most people carry around in their heads is almost entirely wrong. Here is the part that almost nobody talks about. The single biggest driver of Buffett's wealth is not his stock-picking skill. It's something far more structural, and once you understand it, it completely changes how you should think about what he's actually doing. By the end of this video, you'll understand the specific mechanism that gave Buffett a cost advantage no retail investor has ever been able to replicate. And the answer involves an insurance company, which sounds boring until you see what it actually does to investment returns over 50 years. Let's start with what people think Buffett does. The popular image is a folksy genius in Omaha who reads annual reports all day, identifies undervalued companies, buys them cheap, and holds forever. That part is real, but it's incomplete in a way that matters enormously. Buffett transformed Berkshire Hathaway from a failing textile mill into an insurance conglomerate. And insurance is not incidental to his strategy, it is the strategy. Here's why. When you pay an insurance premium, the company collects that cash immediately, but only pays out claims later, sometimes years later. That pool of money sitting between collection and payout is called the float. Berkshire's insurance operations, including GEICO and General Re, have generated float that Buffett has reported in his annual shareholder letters, growing to levels that rank among the largest in the insurance industry. A pool of investable capital that has compounded in scale for decades, and Buffett gets to invest that float. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most insurance companies pay a net cost to hold their float, meaning claims and expenses exceed premiums, so the float isn't free. Berkshire's insurance operations have historically generated what's called underwriting profit, meaning they have effectively been paid to hold other people's money. Researchers Frazzini, Kabiller, and Pedersen published an analysis through the National Bureau of Economic Research examining Berkshire's performance. They estimated Berkshire has applied leverage of roughly 1.7 to 1 on average over its history, largely sourced from insurance float, at a cost that has frequently been near zero or even negative. That is a structural financing advantage that simply does not exist for individual investors. So what does Buffett actually buy with that capital? He gravitates toward businesses with durable competitive advantages, what he calls economic moats: pricing power, brand loyalty, high switching costs, low capital requirements relative to earnings. Companies like Coca-Cola, American Express, and more recently Apple. He is not a trader. Average holding periods at Berkshire stretch across decades, not quarters. But here's the retention hook most people miss. Buffett himself has said across multiple shareholder letters that for most individual investors, trying to pick stocks the way he does is not the right approach. In Berkshire's shareholder letters, he has explicitly recommended low-cost index funds for the vast majority of people. He has even described, in one of his publicly available shareholder letters, the instructions he outlined for the trustee managing a portion of his family's inheritance. The direction is to put 90% in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and 10% in short-term government bonds. The man who is famous for stock picking has publicly said most people should not pick stocks. Remember what I said at the start, the popular version of Buffett is incomplete in a way that matters. Here's the complete picture. His edge has three components working together. 1. Access to cheap, large-scale leverage through insurance float. 2. A genuine skill in identifying businesses with durable economic advantages and holding them through volatility. 3. An extraordinarily long runway. He has been compounding capital for over 60 years. And according to the analysis by Frazzini, Kabiller, and Pedersen published through the National Bureau of Economic Research, the vast majority of Buffett's accumulated wealth is attributable to the compounding that occurred in the later decades of his investing career, a direct consequence of the extraordinary length of his runway. Time is doing an enormous amount of work here. So what is the honest first step for a regular investor? Not replicating Buffett. That's not available to you. but taking his actual public advice seriously is low-cost, broad market index funds, long-time horizons, minimizing the fees and taxes that silently erode returns, and perhaps most importantly, the behavioral discipline to stay invested when markets fall, which Buffett has called the single most important trait an investor can develop. Which brings us back to the question this video started with. The reason the popular image of Buffett is so misleading is that it focuses on the part of his strategy that is visible and romantic, the stock picks, and completely ignores the structural financing engine underneath it, the float, the leverage, the 60-year runway. Strip those away, and even Buffett's skill, which is real, does not produce the same result. And that leaves one question worth sitting with. If the world's most celebrated stock picker tells you to buy index funds, what does that say about the actual odds of beating him?